Lawn bowling is more than just a game. There's no talking on the green.
You're in 1972 prices.
There's nothing this soft. Just stick it right up and right up.
From the wide outdoors to the great indoors. Welcome to Without Bias.
Apia, the go-to insurance for retirees. Call 13 50 50. Get set, go. Local legends wanted. A bowls green is just up the road. Search bowls clubs near me.
Hello everyone and welcome to a new year of Without Bias here on SEN. It's thanks to Apia, proudly supporting Bowls Australia and Bowls Australia. Local legends wanted, search bowls clubs near me. Julian Marcus with you for 2023. It's my absolute pleasure to welcome you to our first edition of the program as we head into a big year of bowls. We've already had the Australian Open just gone. We are all systems ahead for the World Championships next month on the Gold Coast, and we are going to each and every week dive into the wonderful world of bowls. Coming up on the program, I'm going to be speaking in just a moment to the Australian Open men's singles and fours winner, and the player of the tournament is also going to be a part of the right at home Jackaroo side at the World Championships, Aron Sherriff, and David van der Waal. He's Bowls Australia's diversity and inclusion manager, and he's going to tell us all about the work that he is doing there. And we thank our partners for 2023. Right at home, the right care right at home, improving the quality of life for those we serve. And also for Apia, the go-to insurance for retirees, called 13 50 50. So let's get into it, shall we? Our first guest for the year. He had a massive AO just a few weeks ago on the Gold Coast, and he is going to be a big part of the World Championships in a few weeks' time. I speak of Aron Sherriff. Aron, welcome.
No worries. Thanks for having me.
First of all, congratulations on the Australian Open campaign. I mean, it couldn't have gone much better for you. 2 titles, a player of the tournament, and a silver in the pairs. Is this the most special Australian Open that you've had so far?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, to make all 3 finals was pretty crazy. It was pretty hectic, as the body sort of let me know by the end of it. So yeah, look, obviously, the goal at the start of the AO for me, and probably my main goal for this year, was to go back to back in the Australian Open singles. It had never been done before, and it was a cherry on the cake, so to speak, for this season. So to tick that goal off and get that, obviously made that even a little bit more special. So yeah, it's an amazing 2 weeks.
As you mentioned, you're the first person to successfully defend your singles title. You've got 5 overall, which extends the record. And how much does that mean to you, considering, first of all, how hard they are to win at all, especially when you have more than 1,200 competitors in the singles field?
Yeah, well, I guess, obviously being an open event, being defending champion, really just doesn't mean much, to be honest, other than the fact that you've got to hand the trophy back a couple of weeks before the event starts. So you start right back with everyone else back in sectional play. It's a totally open draw, so there's no seedings or cruisy runs or anything like that for being the defending champion. So I think I'm up to about 23 straight singles wins at the Australian Open. So obviously 11 wins last year to win it and 12 this year to win it. So it's pretty special, especially against some of the names that I was able to beat along the way. So considering I have a bit of a love-hate relationship with singles at times, my game's in a pretty good place at the moment. So I'm just riding the wave and taking the success while I can get it.
You mentioned you had to hand back the trophy a couple of weeks beforehand. When you got it back, have you put it back in the same mantelpiece at home, or have you changed it up this year?
No, it's back where it was. We had a bit of a joke, my wife Amanda and I, at the before I gave it back. She said, "Oh, I'm just used to having that there now after 12 months," and I said, "That's all right, Dale. I'll have it back for you in a couple of weeks." So it was a bit of a tongue-in-cheek sort of comment, but. No, thankfully I was able to fulfil that. So it's back in its rightful place in our dining area.
You mentioned some of the names that you had to knock over in the singles competition. The final itself, you had Jacob Nelson from Queensland to combat with, and it was a tense final as well. What do you think was the key that got you over the top?
Probably just the fact that it was my 5th final. I'd been there before. Jacob he'd had an incredible run, knocking off like Gary Kelly and Aaron Wilson and quite some big names in our sport along the way. So I just think that having the experience on the TV rink, being my home club and it being my fifth final, I was probably just able to settle a little bit quicker and towards the end of the match there. And there's some of the big moments, I think just a little bit of extra experience sort of shone through there. So, it was as I said, it was a huge effort from Jacob. It was a great run and he did himself proud in the final as well. But I just think just that little bit more experience in that arena was sort of what got me over the line in the end.
The pairs event, as I mentioned off the top, you just about had everything go your way except for the pairs event, but you got a silver medal out of that with Aaron Tees, knocked off by Ben Twist and Aaron Wilson. How much confidence did you get out of that, even though you came out on the wrong side of the final for the rest of the AO?
Yeah, well, I guess playing in a final, being on that TV rink, sort of getting a bit of an idea of what the rink's doing, sort of held me in good stead for the final and the singles the next day. And I suppose missing out on that title was probably a bit of a spur on to do well in the fours, for Teesy and I, and obviously, with that World Four story, and then Corey, that was his first Australian Open title as well in the fours. So there was plenty of motivation coming out of that close loss in the pairs final for the next day. So yeah, sometimes those losses make the victory sweeter.
Speaking with Aron Sherriff, the Australian Open men's singles and fours winner, a Jackaroo as well for right at home and the player of the tournament at the AO. You had a huge fortnight on the Gold Coast and, of course, we're heading back up there not too far away from now for the World Championships. Congratulations on being selected for the world titles. How pumped are you to head back and represent Australia?
Yeah, super excited. I've sort of been back involved for about 9 months now, so had a little double with the Irish test and then obviously multi-nation, so it's kind of got the international juices flowing. I guess coming back into the team, I wasn't 100% sure how I'd go with it all, but I'm as motivated as ever now, and then obviously having that success at the AO and knowing those Gold Coast greens well and having a lot of good results there over the last few years. Really excited to get back in the green and gold and have a crack at a couple more world titles. So it's going to be another busy period of just sort of about to finish up a couple of weeks off, resting the body a bit. So with a few events ramping up, with the Golden Nugget, the UBC, and then obviously the Australian Indoor leading into the World Championship. So it's just a nice little boost of games and get my technique and everything back into shape. So, looking forward to World Championships and getting back on that world stage for Australia.
And aside from those events that you mentioned, what does your prep look like between now and the World Champs? So we've got a New South Wales Queensland series at Tweed Heads next week, and then move into the Golden Nugget singles in first week in August, which is obviously always a major event, a very prestigious event. So looking forward to that, and then down for a totally unique event like the UBC with totally different scoring and real short, sharp games, and so that'll be I guess it's good competition and something just a little bit different, just to keep it fresh, and then back to defend the title at the Australian Indoor the week after that. So once all that's done, I get about 5 or 6 days at home. It's a bit of rest and recovery, and then we go into camp and start preparing for World Champs. So it seems like a quite a busy schedule, but there'll be a lot of downtime in those events, and 2 of them are singles events, so that's good. Allows me to get some real good rhythm on the greens. So looking forward to it. Well, Aron, thanks for spending some time with us and being our first guest for the year on Without Bias on SCN. Congratulations on your success at the Australian Open, and we look forward to seeing you back out on the green very shortly. And, of course, best of luck at the World Championships.
No worries. Thanks for having me on, and I hope I get to chat to you again.
Aron Sherriff joining us here on Without Bias, and that is thanks to Apia, proudly supporting Bowls Australia. And, of course, the Jackaroos player update for Right at Home, the right care right at home. When we come back, we'll be joined by Bowls Australia's Diversity and Inclusion Manager, David van der Waal. This is Without Bias, brought to you by Apia, proudly supporting Bowls Australia and Bowls Australia. Local legends wanted. Search Bowls clubs near me. Welcome back to Without Bias for Bowls Australia. Local legends wanted. A Bowls Green is just up the road. Search Bowls clubs near me. And Apia, the go-to insurance for retirees, called 13 50 50. Get set, go. It's great to have on our first edition of the program for 2023 Bowls Australia's Diversity and Inclusion Manager, David van der Waal. David, welcome.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be on.
It's a fairly new role for you, moulding from your Better Ageing Program Manager role. How have you found the change transitioning from that into Diversity and Inclusion Manager role?
Yeah, it's been really great. I'm enjoying it a lot. I came to BA with a background in exercise sports science as well as program management. So the opportunities provided me an opportunity, as I said, to combine my interests with my professional experience. So I've played sport my whole life, and I'm a strong advocate of the benefits of the positive health outcomes that I've seen firsthand through participation in physical activity. And sport's been such a big part of my life, and I wouldn't want anyone to miss out on these experiences that I was fortunate enough to enjoy, regardless of not just the age, but gender, ability, cultural background, and sexual diversity also.
So tell us, what does this role entail?
So as Diversity, Equity and Inclusion Manager, we at the moment we're working on a strategic plan which launched earlier this year after a few months of consultation. I'm responsible basically for the execution of the plan over the next 3 years. The plan includes a roadmap of initiatives that will work through over the next 24 to 36 months. It's underpinned by 6 strategic pillars, being equity, women and girls, multicultural, pride, all abilities, safety, inclusion, and First Nations, which is really exciting to me. I'm interested in all of these areas, and I look forward to getting a lot done in this area in particular.
So tell us about the planning that went into this. How long did it take to put together the diversity and inclusion strategy that you just mentioned?
I was lucky enough to have been left with a bit of a draft. So prior to my appointment in the role, we did have a diversity, equity and inclusion manager, as well as Neil Dalrymple, who made a start on the strategic plan. So it was something for me to build on. Even so, it took still over 3 months of consultation to finalise a strategy. We've got external DE&I partners, as well as senior management, who obviously had a lot to do with it. A big discussion point for us was whether we pick 2 or 3 key pillars to focus on and throw everything behind, whilst potentially forgetting about others, which we recognise are just as important, or include 5 or 6 and focus on a couple of key initiatives for each. So in the end, we chose the latter. Each pillar to us is equally as important. Moving forward, I've assembled a DE&I working party, which is really exciting. They'll support me moving forward. It's really great to get people involved from outside of the organisation who can provide me with different perspectives.
Tell us about that working party. Who's involved and what will their overview be?
So in the working party, we've got, it's made up of 8 people, a couple of people from Clubland. We've got 4 men and 4 women, a couple of people from internally at BA, as well as members of the Jackaroo squad, so HP focused. We've also got a couple of representatives there who are First Nations and will help guide me through the next 12 to 18 months when we begin working on our first RAP plan. So yes, the idea behind assembling this working party is to have members from each of the pillars that can contribute through their experience with each, and it's really exciting to have them on board, and I guess to support me through the next couple of years. Yeah.
The strategy talks about the next 3 years being the time period that you're looking to implement that. What are you hoping to achieve overall in that time frame with this strategy?
I think with the strategy, the overall goal is tied to BA's overall vision, which is to connect all Australians with the sport of bowls. So I guess at the moment, when you look at the demographics of I guess, the participation members at bowls, it doesn't reflect the wider community. So yeah, I guess the whole the crux of the strategy, the whole purpose of it is to get representation from all Australians, from all walks of life and backgrounds involved in the sport.
Got David van der Waal joining us here on Without Bias. He's Bowls Australia's Diversity and Inclusion Manager, and we're talking about the new Diversity and Inclusion Strategy that's just been unveiled by Bowls Australia. What have been some of the internal discussions since this report has been released and going forward into the first 12 months of this plan?
Internally, as I said, this is a bit of the strategy's a roadmap for the next 3 years. Our objectives have been divided into 12-month goals. At the moment, I think obviously the upcoming referendum is a really big topic of conversation. Internally, we acknowledge that we're behind a lot of other sports in the space. We don't have a RAP in place, which is an initiative that's been slated for next year. My understanding is that it can take up to 12 to 18 months to develop one from scratch, and so at the moment I'm already exploring what's involved, spending time connecting with our First Nation members as well as other sports that have been through the process. My goal is to be prepared as I possibly can be, knowing that development of the RAP will take some time and obviously a lot of care also. We're talking about, in terms of other pillars, we've got third-party consultants, as I mentioned. We work closely with Pride in Sport, Disability Sports Australia, which I know that Brett Hughes touched on a couple of weeks back on your show. Work 180, which is an equity consultancy business. We meet regularly to discuss the latest, how to make sure, which will help us ensure that our DE&I practices are current. Other things we've been chatting about have been a lot around capturing data. We don't do a great job at capturing data at social participation level, and just in general, let alone DE&I. So we want to understand how all bowls participants engage with the sport, as well as any barriers they experience. Other things we've been chatting about a lot, looking to roll out regular staff training in key areas of DE&I. And we also have a Women in Bowl strategy, which we have and focus on, which is part of next year's plan also.
And just finally, your role incorporates the Roll Back the Clock program too. Tell us about how that's been going and its growth over the last 12 months.
Yeah, it's been going really well. Roll Back the Clock aims to help older adults find their 150 minutes of physical activity each week through short, regular, age-appropriate group exercise classes. They also include educational component as well as some bowls. Slowly been building momentum since the start, since I started, which was back when we began emerging from COVID lockdowns in late 2021. The challenge, I think, for us was, particularly with this cohort, which were particularly more vulnerable than others, was the confidence going back into public gatherings and group situations. We've slowly seen participation rates over the past year increase. Although our program numbers are modest, we've seen our numbers double over the past 12 months, which we're really, really pleased with. I think we've had between 300 and 400 people through the program, which is obviously a huge increase on even prior to COVID happening. But yeah, the numbers are still trending upwards. Our programs are mostly based in Victoria and New South Wales, with a small presence outside of the rest of the states. So yeah, my goal over the next 12 months, aside from continuing to scale the program, is to have more of a consistent presence elsewhere around the country.
Well, David, we wish you the best of luck in your ongoing projects with Bowls Australia, and we look forward to seeing how they play out over the next 12 months. Thanks for joining us.
No, thanks, Julian. Take care.
And that's it for our first edition of Without Bias for 2023. My thanks to Aron, Sherriff and David van der Waal for their time. And it is all thanks to our friends at Apia, the go-to insurance for retirees. Call 13 50 50. Get set, go. And you can catch the podcast anytime. Just search Without Bias wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for joining us for our first edition for 2023. And we'll be back with more next week. Until then, have a great week.